The showdown over the border crisis. A committee voted along party lines, you've heard that before, to ask the House to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Republicans are accusing him of failing to limit immigration at the southern border, but there is little, if any, evidence that Mayorkas broke any laws. And while House Republicans were working to impeach him over immigration, they were also saying they would block a bipartisan deal to help fix the issue. Scott McFarland is on Capitol Hill for us, following all of it. Scott, good morning.
Tony, good morning. The issue of border security is now clearly tied up in campaign politics, and last night's marathon debate only further exposed the divide.
Thousands of miles from the southern border where the Biden administration is grappling with thousands of illegal migrant crossings a day, House Republicans set their sights on the nation's Homeland Security Secretary.
Secretary Mayorkas has put his political preferences above following the law.
After an all-day hearing that went into the night, the Republican-led House Homeland Security Committee approved 2 articles of impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas.
I bet our founding fathers are just rolling over in their graves,
Claiming he willfully failed to follow immigration law without producing evidence.
It's clear he's not done his job. He's been derelict in his duties. He's violated his oath of office.
Democrats blasted the hearing as partisan gamesmanship in an election year.
The House Republicans are doing everything they can at Donald Trump's direction to sabotage any legislation because you don't want solutions, you just want politics.
Is this really a high crime and misdemeanor?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a cabinet secretary who is totally disregarding the laws passed by Congress.
Mayorkas is also a key negotiator in Senate talks to overhaul U.S. border security laws. But on Tuesday, Republican Speaker Mike Johnson reiterated it may be dead on arrival in the House.
What's been suggested is in this bill is not enough to secure the border.
Even if this impeachment vote goes to the U.S. House and passes, this effort is going to be knocked down by the Democratic-controlled U.S. Senate, which will prevent Mayorkas from being the first cabinet secretary removed from office since the 1800s, Tony.
That's a long time ago, Scott. You know, we know voters rank immigration as one of their top issues. I've heard it. Our pollsters have heard that. And it's especially true among Republican voters, which might make you think the House GOP has an incentive to work with the Senate on an immigration bill, but it doesn't seem to be working out that way. How so?
And Tony, it's really striking how immigration has become a dominant issue here, and Senate negotiators have been trying to cobble together this big deal to give the president more power to stem a migrant crisis, but they can't quite get there. Can't quite get it on paper, and now there's this wall of opposition forming. Donald Trump says he doesn't want a deal. He wants to campaign on the issue, and he has some devoted loyalists in the House who can block it from becoming law.
All right. Thanks for the political lesson, Scott. Thank you.
Turning now to a dramatic and controversial raid by undercover Israeli forces in the West Bank. Video shows a special forces team infiltrating a hospital before they killed 3 men accused of plotting an attack. Deborah Patta has more from northern Israel.
This surveillance footage shows Israeli special forces on an undercover mission, dressed in doctor scrubs and women's clothing, one even carrying a baby chair. They made it to the 3rd floor of this hospital. Their target, 3 Palestinian men executed at point-blank range. They were sleeping in their beds, said Hospital Director Naji Nazal, when they were killed in cold blood, shot straight in the head. Israel says the 3 men were neutralized because they were Islamic militants hiding out in the hospital, planning an October 7th style attack. It was a terrorist cell, said Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi, that was planning to kill Israeli civilians. The IDF has not indicated there was any resistance from brothers Basil and Mohammed Ghazawi and their friend Mohammed Jalamna. According to medical staff, Basil Ghazawi had been receiving treatment after being partially paralyzed in an Israeli drone strike last year. Crowds thronged the streets as the funeral procession made its way down. Both Hamas and Islamic Jihad have claimed the men as their own. For CBS Mornings, Deborah Patta, Margaliot, Israel.
President Biden says he has a plan to respond to that drone attack by Iran-backed forces that killed 3 Americans in Jordan. Administration officials say it will likely involve multiple targets and actions over multiple days, all part of an effort to retaliate without escalating this conflict. Ed O'Keefe has more on the story from the White House.
Days after the drone attack that killed 3 Americans, President Biden says he's landed on a response.
Yes.
U.S. officials tell CBS News plans call for a strategic bombing campaign that's likely to continue for a number of days, striking numerous targets.
I don't think we need a wider war in the Middle East. That's not what I'm looking for.
Does Iran fear the U.S. about the possible escalation of military involvement in the Middle East? What do you say to those in your party?
We'll see.
In an apparent attempt to head off U.S. retaliation, the Iranian-backed militia the U.S. blames for the deadly attack in Jordan announced the suspension of military and security operations against American forces. But the Pentagon says there's been 3 more attacks on U.S. troops since Sunday's strike.
We have called on the Iranian proxy groups to stop their attacks. They have not. There will be consequences.
The U.S. military is rushing additional air defenses to the site of the attack in Jordan, an outpost officials acknowledged hadn't been as well protected against drone attacks as other American troop locations in Iraq and Syria. Sunday was the first time the outpost, known as Tower 22, had been attacked. On Tuesday, President Biden spoke by phone with the families of the 3 service members killed, including the parents of Kennedy Sanders.
Kennedy was full of life. She was a breath of fresh air.
The commander-in-chief told them Kennedy was promoted posthumously to the rank of sergeant.
I really know what that meant to her, because she was working towards, getting that promotion. And that was one of the most special moments in this whole encounter that, and they come from the President of the United States.
The White House says the president plans to attend the formal return of the 3 service members killed, what the military calls a dignified transfer ceremony, on Friday at the Dover Air Base in Delaware.
Ed, thank you. Millions of people on the West Coast are waking up to heavy rain this morning from a storm that is expected to also dump feet of snow in the mountains. For more on the developing flood threat, let's bring in meteorologist Stephanie Abrams with our partners at the Weather Channel. Steph, good morning.
Nate, good morning. This is all compliments of our atmospheric river that's pumping moisture into the West Coast. Moderate to heavy rainfall could cause excessive runoff and rising rivers. The state with the biggest flood threat the next couple of days is California. Today, the rain will move south along I-5 while it's snow into the Sierra. Tomorrow, Southern California will get drenched and we'll have flakes into the higher elevations. We'll even see rain into the deserts. Now, many of us could accumulate half a month's worth of rainfall. I'm talking 3 to 5+ inches, while it's several feet of snow in the Sierra, which is just what we need because our current statewide snowpack is about half the amount we typically get by this time of year. Now, winds are going to be blustery, 30, 50 miles an hour, gusting to 60, even higher at elevation. We could see tree damage, power outages, and hazardous travel. Nate, energy from the west will head east and make for a messy weekend from the plains to the south.
All right, Stephanie Abrams, thank you so much. And in our next half hour, Ben Tracy takes us aboard a flight into an atmospheric river like the one Stephanie mentioned to see firsthand what researchers are learning about the powerful storms.
The governor of Oregon has declared an emergency for the city of Portland just a few years after it became the first state in the nation to largely decriminalize drug use. Very interesting story here. There had been hope that a more humane approach could help curb addiction overall. But it hasn't worked out that way, at least so far. Adam Yamaguchi of CBS Reports shows us that many people are running out of patience.
The state, the county, and city declare a fentanyl state of emergency.
The state of Oregon appears to be taking a new approach in addressing the opioid crisis plaguing its largest city. The 90-day emergency order for fentanyl use, issued by the governor, establishes a command center and more coordination between emergency management and health services. However, it does not include additional funding. The goal is to give the city's residents a chance against the extremely addictive opioid.
It is a drug that compels users to redose every 45 to 90 minutes. People in the throes of a fentanyl addiction can hardly walk into a clinic without having to use again.
Everyone has Narcan? Oregon paved the way as the first state to decriminalize drug use, passing Measure 110 in 2020. Instead of incarcerating addicts, it focuses on addiction recovery.
You're going to call one of these numbers?
We were with Portland police last year as they handed out citations to fentanyl users in the street.
My full-time job is fentanyl, and basically all roads lead to fentanyl in downtown Portland.
But in the years since Measure 110 was passed, overdose deaths have continued to rise, prompting local leaders to call for more than just the emergency order, but the recriminalization of drug use.
We've had 3 years of this law that has not delivered on the promise that voters thought they were getting.
Ebony Brawley doesn't want to see Oregon's law repealed. The Portland resident says it helped her avoid prison and turn her life around.
Because of Measure 110, I was able to change my story and break those chains, and provide a life for myself and for my daughter that she probably wouldn't have had otherwise.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Adam Yamaguchi.
This morning, the tributes are pouring in for a Broadway legend, Chita Rivera, who has died at the age she was 91. A two-time Tony Award winner, Rivera was a born star, even if she started out as a chorus girl. Vlad is here with a look at her incredible career. Vlad, incredible is the word.
That's exactly how I would put it, Gayle. Good morning. Chita Rivera is the original star of some of the most iconic Broadway shows, including West Side Story, where she starred as Anita. In the culmination of her career, she was honored with 10 Tony nominations, and she won twice, ultimately forging a path for Latina artists.
Why don't we paint the town and all that jazz?
As Broadway's original triple threat,
Many hellos in America.
Chita Rivera stunned audiences with her dancing,
How would you like to put it down over?
acting, and singing for more than half a century. Rivera catapulted to fame as Anita in the original 1957 run of West Side Story. She continued to shape iconic Broadway characters, starring in the original productions of Chicago, Bye Bye Birdie, and The Rink, which earned Rivera her first Tony Award in 1984. Born of Puerto Rican descent in Washington, D.C. in 1933, Rivera was trained as a dancer. When she jumped from bar to Broadway, she dazzled theatergoers with her mesmerizing moves. Even a 1986 car accident that threatened to keep Rivera off the stage did not stop the star. She went on to win her second Tony Award for the title role in Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Rivera made history as the first Latina to win a Kennedy Center honor in 2002. And in 2009, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In an interview with CBS Sunday Morning last year, Rivera reflected on her success.
I do believe that being a dancer gave me the ability to fight and to withstand and to cope. If I come back, I want to come back a dancer.
Wow. Beautiful.
Wow.
Lights of Broadway are shining a little bit less bright this morning because she was a true star. I was lucky enough to see her in Kiss of the Spider-Woman in the 1990s. She was amazing even then. She just never lost that just beautiful way of dancing and singing, and she was just wonderful.
I know, I met her a couple of times. I'm not going to sit here and say I knew her.
Yeah.
But when she walked in the room, you knew she was in there. She was such a light, and people would say, oh, Chita Rivera's here. It was exciting just to see her.
Yeah. Lights are dimmer today, but she really added to the wattage in her career.
Yes,
Absolutely.
she
Well
did.
said.
Yes,
Well
she
said.
did. A new medical study out this morning finds pregnancies are getting shorter. CDC researchers looked at births that happened before full-term pregnancy around 40 weeks. They found that early-term births, that's at 37 or 38 weeks, are up by 20% since 2014. And preterm births before 37 weeks, they're up by 12%. It's very concerning. Let's talk about this with CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder. She's editor-at-large for public health at KFF. Good morning to you, Dr. Gounder. Good to see you. If I was pregnant, and that would be a miracle, I would be listening to you with both ears. So for pregnant women who are sitting out there now, who are pregnant, what does this mean? Why is this happening?
Well, this is concerning because if a baby is born early term, not preterm, but even early term, there can be complications. So the lungs may not be fully developed. That baby may not be able to regulate their temperature or their blood sugar as well. They may not have that suckling reflex that allows the baby to feed. And so that means staying in the hospital for longer so the baby has the support to survive.
So what's causing it, though?
Well, there's no question that some of this is early induction, early C-sections, but the trends of those have actually been going down. While still too high, the trend has been going down over the last 10, 15 years. And so what has changed? Women are having babies at an older age. But age aside, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of those increase the risk of these kinds of issues with earlier preterm birth.
Obesity can cause early births?
Well, the complications that you find associated with obesity, yeah, so things like preeclampsia or eclampsia, these are the reasons women are having to deliver earlier for the health of their own health as well as for the health of the pregnancy. And if you wait until you get pregnant to address or think about these issues, in some ways it's too late. You really want to go into pregnancy already being as healthy as you can, addressing these very issues.
Yeah, so be proactive. I was always told that 40 weeks, of course, is ideal, but if you make it to 38, that's pretty good. Is there anything that we can do other than watch your weight, concentrate on getting your blood pressure down? What else can women do?
Well, a big part of this is access to health care. So about 2/3 of people have health insurance through their job. That leaves about 1/3 who don't, right? And so some of them might be signing up for Obamacare, marketplace plans. Some of them might be getting care through Medicaid. And so if you're eligible and you could be getting that kind of access, you should, and get yourself a primary care doctor.
How do you know if you're in trouble?
In terms of your health?
Yeah, how do you know? If you're pregnant, how do you know this is something I need to go to the doctor right away?
Well, if you're having issues like headaches, if you've noticed changes in your urination, those are the kinds of things, if your blood pressure is really high, that you really should be going to see your doctor as soon as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Gounder.